My wife and I take walks in between our other activities. It really helps with our general health, joints, back, stuff like that. We noticed a while ago that when we were just walking that our arms were generally down to our sides and we would have to raise them up to sort of get the blood out of our hands, and we weren't really using our arms too much. So we started to incorporate some, I guess you would call it, cross training into our walking experience. I'd like to discuss what we do, but also encourage you to think about doing this if you walk by yourself. It sounds pretty easy to do something when you're walking, but it takes some practice and getting used to. And I'd like to go over that with you in this video. The things that we use are a small Nerf football, toning balls, and a 175-gram frisbee. One of the most important things that I would like to add up front is that if you're not healthy enough to walk and multitask at the same time, like even holding a ball can be hard for some people. Maybe both of your arms aren't doing that good. Maybe you are by yourself and you can't throw a ball to someone. Those kind of restrictions, you need to consider all that, because these activities that you would add to a walk can be a little bit demanding. But if you're able to just throw a ball to someone, or you're able to toss a ball into the air and catch it yourself just a little ways, just a couple inches, or move it in between your hands, it seems simple, but then when you add your own personal condition and abilities into the mix, it becomes a little bit more trickier and you need to plan a little bit. In my opinion, you do need two people for the frisbee. I've seen people throw frisbee to themselves. Maybe you could just toss it, like sort of bobble it and then catch it with both hands. You can sort of launch it up into the air vertically a little bit and catch it. There are things you can do by yourself with a frisbee, but in general, the caveat here is that a frisbee, to really enjoy it, you need at least two people, which leads me to the other point of discussion that we only walk, my wife and myself. So if you're walking with a bunch of other people, then bring this to the table with them and see if they have any ideas about how you can alternate throwing between people, that kind of stuff. Your environment is critical. We happen to walk in a place that has sidewalks, streets that aren't necessarily that busy. There are some streets that are busier, and we tend to stay away from throwing balls and stuff around the busier streets just in case the ball might go into that, or the frisbee might go into it, or hit a car or something. So we tend to restrict what we do as we're walking to just walking until we get to a place where we know we can safely throw the frisbee to each other or pass the ball to each other. The toning ball is something that we're going to discuss in a second, but that's one of those things that's kind of hard to throw in between people. So generally we'll both have one or two and then just kind of do that while we're walking, lift it up above our heads. The specifics of each of these, now if you have different kind of balls that you want to use, and if your ideas sort of don't fit exactly into these three things that I'm showing you, then add your own things. You know, I'm just here to give you a maybe idea that you can use and develop and customize for yourself. The Nerf football, this one is about 8.5 inches long. It's really soft, it's really light. Throwing a football to someone, if you haven't done it, it can be kind of tricky. Take time to practice just throwing the ball, maybe in your yard or in a parking lot or someplace safe away from the walking environment, just to get the hang of how the ball is going to be thrown and be caught. It does take some practice. The cool part about the football is, believe it or not, you are going to drop it. So you get bending in, you get stretching in when the ball flies over your head. There's a lot of good arm and shoulder use here. The first time that we used the football when walking, we noticed some difference in just the way our arms were moving and our shoulders. Even though we're active, there was certain joints and muscle groups and soft tissue groups that just hadn't been used in quite this way. Just a squeezing of the ball, the use of the fingers to manipulate the ball. It's pretty interesting how that works. For a little light ball, it really can give you a good workout. This one we will use when we're walking through a park or in a street that is pretty quiet without a lot of traffic. These balls bounce really funny. Have you ever seen a football hit the ground? It doesn't just stop and roll like a round ball. So it can hop and move and do different things. You're gonna mess up some throws, so be prepared to sort of scramble after the ball a little bit. Just be really aware of your surroundings when it comes to using a football. It could bounce and go under a car, for instance, or in some direction that maybe you're not comfortable in going. So just be really careful, like going under a bush, that kind of thing. So anyway, the football is a blast. I'm really glad that we got that incorporated into our walking routine. This works really great for us at night because it's a really brightly colored ball, and the street lights, they really go in very well with the use of the football. Just be careful with the football and street lights, because if you throw it high to someone, they may be forced to look up into a street light, which can be a little dazzling. So just kind of try to throw it with some degree of accuracy, and that does take time to develop, believe it or not. Like I said, this stuff isn't all that easy, but once you get going, it really does give you some extra use of muscles and soft tissues that you wouldn't be using otherwise if you're just walking with your hands down. The toning ball, this one you'll notice is 5 pounds. That one can be kind of heavy. If I use this one routinely, if I toss it in between my hands and raise it up above my head and manipulate the ball for 1 or 2 mile walk, I can develop some tennis elbow and different soreness in my shoulders. Shop around for lighter ones. If the 5 pound is too heavy, when you go to the store, got the toning ball at Walmart, and they did have 2.5 pound ball, and they also have lighter sort of balls that you can use that are okay when they hit the ground. They're not going to get all tore up. It's soft. It's got a strap that you can take off. This one does. I think the smaller ones do not have this strap. It's going to be either myself or my wife just walking with one of these, and we don't pass it between each other. The smaller one, the 2.5, we did throw that short distance, but we just kind of did an underhand toss and 5 or 6 feet away, nothing like throwing a baseball. Those are really good at building up all kinds of different muscles. Lift it up above your head, twist with them from side to side with it above your head or waist level at different heights. If you have 2 of them, twist back and forth with them against your chest, get some extra stretching in there. Also, if you're able to, you can get it to the ground and lift it up. There's some good squatting exercises that you can do with these. They are really going to help loosen some of the areas up there that are stiff that haven't been used for a while. Start with a lighter ball so if you're not comfortable. If I actually do walk with these isometrically, where I'll have the ball in between my 2 hands, like palm facing palm with a ball in the middle, and just press on it for a little while and just do some isometrics while I'm walking. The frisbee is, again, if you've never thrown a frisbee, find some place like a grassy park and just practice throwing. There's a couple of throws that you should learn, and that's a forehand and a backhand. The forehand is the throw that you would use for someone that is going from left to right, and you'll notice that when you throw a forehand, that it will curve into that person that way. So you're going to intersect that person's path with a forehand as they're going from your left to your right. And then conversely, a backhand is for someone that's going from your right to your left. And if you throw that, then the frisbee will generally take a path that intersects that person. It's a path if they're walking that way. If you're just standing still, either one is fine. You're going to get a lot of opportunities because you're going to misthrow, you're going to drop some, to really use different muscle groups in your hips and knees, ankles, everything, hands, shoulders, elbows. You can twist with it. You're going to get a little bit more accuracy. The football, there's some accuracy involved, but in general, it's just going to be more of trajectory, the height of the ball, because you're going to be throwing it directly at them. You'll see that the frisbee is a little trickier when it comes to getting an accurate throw in. So it's kind of cool to get your throwing ability with the frisbee dialed in. Also with the frisbee, there is the velocity of the throw. So the harder you throw it, the faster it goes, the harder it's going to impact someone. So they're going to get some extra workout with their hands and just receiving the frisbee. It is hard plastic. I always recommend when you're throwing to someone, tell them, are you ready? Don't just throw to someone that's not looking at you. Make sure that you have eye contact and that you are throwing to someone that is aware that the frisbee's coming their way. This could hurt someone in their head. If you throw it hard enough, could knock out a tooth possibly, or injure an eye or an ear. So don't just throw a frisbee at someone. Make sure they know. You can actually say, are you ready? And when you get a rhythm with someone and they understand that this is an important, fun exercise, but it takes a little bit of safety and thought, it's going to be time well spent. Get that habit down where you're absolutely sure that person is ready. The frisbee also does require more distance to me. So throwing a frisbee to someone that's 5 feet away, yeah, I guess you could do it. To me, I would not do that. We do throw across park areas to each other where we get to run a little bit more or jog. I mean, it's important to realize that the frisbee can be moving fast, but after you've done it for a while, you'll be able to gauge how fast you need to run to get it. So don't be afraid of that part of it. If you're not able to run or jog at least, then maybe you should practice a little bit more in a park just to see if this is for you. Also, there are smaller frisbees. The 175 is regulation for ultimate frisbee, which is a very active and fast-moving sport. And the people that play that game are very used to this size of a frisbee. Don't feel like you have to buy a 175. Start with a smaller frisbee and start throwing maybe 20 feet from each other and see how that goes. And then just work your way out to the point where you can throw to someone and receive from someone that's further distances. We do throw across the street. So 2-lane streets, we will throw from sidewalk to sidewalk when there's no cars. I mean, there can be no cars visible at all. Because if there's a missed throw, the frisbee can roll back into the street. All kinds of things could happen with a car coming. Think about it. You're a distraction to the driver. So don't give them an idea like maybe you're going to throw when they're coming towards you. Just don't have a walking path that's conducive to throwing across the street. Then don't do it. That's just silly and it's not considerate. So don't do that. The other thing with the frisbee is that it can fly over someone's head, stretching, and it's good to jump and try to catch the frisbee. That's great. But it can go over a fence and you're not going to get the frisbee back. It could go into a storm drain if it hits the pavement and slides into that. So be careful where you're throwing and be aware of how you're throwing it. Anyone can make a throwing and catching mistake. Frisbees can roll. Like I said, they can roll back into the street. They can fly inadvertently into the street where you don't want it, into shrubbery or bushes or someone's yard. Get a little practice down if you're not comfortable throwing a frisbee. Make sure that you're aware of the other person and what they're able to do. Just be careful. Be careful of other people and they're walking. You don't want to do this when people are walking, next to you. The frisbee is a lot of fun. Actually, it's our most favorite thing to do when we're walking. We've been doing it for a while. We're pretty good at it, and it does take some practice. We have that blessing of some space that a lot of people don't. If you're in an urban area, when there's a lot of cars, a lot of parked cars, a lot of other people, a lot of traffic. I don't know if the frisbee would be such a great thing, but throwing a frisbee at a park, you could do that if you just want to learn how to throw a frisbee and get good at it. You can get some walking in that way. There's a lot of parks that have open spaces for doing just that. Kind of a lost sport, I suppose, as far as just recreationally throwing a frisbee. Anyway, these are my ideas for just sort of getting some extra movement into your body while you're walking. You're going to be able to get a lot more activity into your arms and shoulders and other parts of your torso and upper body when you incorporate these things into your routine.